Welcome to the session at the European Parliament where the Intergroup for Animal Welfare has met as usual during the sessions in Strasbourg. One of the topics was the transport and the horrible conditions many animals are suffering during their long transports and the final stage of their life when it comes to especially the Middle East. But you have presented a book about transport. Why?
I have done live animal transport controls for 14 years in Austria, and I have seen, due to these meetings, many transport conditions in Europe and even in the Middle East. And I thought it is time to show what is happening and to show what can be improved and what is not yet implemented.
And thereby you wrote a book. We'll come back to that. You introduced a horrible video showing the conditions under which the animals are suffering when they are killed. What is your reaction to what's going on, your emotional reaction?
I am horrified that the EU is sending 2 million cattle and sheep a year to the Middle East for slaughter. As the film showed, the slaughter methods are almost unimaginably cruel. I am horrified that despite repeated letters and sending of film material to the European Commission and the exporting member states, that they refuse to take any action. We're asking them to halt the trade, or to replace it by a trade in meat, or at the very least to make sure that when EU animals are sent to the Middle East, they are slaughtered in accordance with the internationally agreed standards on welfare at slaughter, agreed by the OIE, signed up to by the European Union and the importing countries. What is going on is horrific.
I'll come back to both of you. Being the president of the Intergroup, how can you avoid not to become angry, not only on the situations for the animals, but also angry on the Commission, which is doing nothing?
Commission is doing nothing. European Parliament over 2 years ago expressed the will to limit the time of transport animals for slaughter for 8 hours, not more than 8 hours. If it would be adopted to the law, it would be the reason that transport for the Middle East would be impossible at that time. And I don't know why the European Commission is against this idea to limit transport time. I don't know, because the long transport, it is not only ethical problem, or not only problem of suffering of animals. This is the economical problem too, because this transport is very costly, and this is the cost of transporting animals for long distance. The last time there was, we have got information about the situation, transport from ships from Romania to Turkey. 13,000 ships were transported, 40% of them died before end of the transport. These companies lost a lot of money. Why this transport is accepted? It should be not accepted.
But we have to bear in mind that 1 million, more than 1 million people within the European Union signed a petition to stop that kind of long transports. The Commission said, we don't care about the million because they made their signature just before the treaty, the Lisbon Treaty, was into power. After that decision, they have had to react to 1 million. Should we start a new campaign having 1 million signatures again?
Maybe we have to start new campaign and to collect millions and millions signatures. But no, in the Parliament we have to stronger press to the European Commission. The Committee of Agriculture is a good place for the debate about that.
But nothing has happened. It's not the first time that this pressure
is. There is I don't know who pressed to the Commission to be against this idea, because we have precedents to limit market by humanitarian reasons, like ban of the import force dogs and cats. The market is free, but we said no because it is
we had the same
horrible,
thing with seal,
horrible, yeah, horrible
for-
practice, and we don't accept it. We stopped this import of these products, and the same should be say about the animal transport to the.
You were
long distance,
emotional
yeah.
and touched by what we saw, the film we saw about how how cows are treated and slaughtered.
Horrible video, yeah.
But you are in a position, being a member of this parliament, being a member, as you said, of the Committee for Agriculture, where you could put pressure. In which way can you put pressure?
The problem is that the Parliament has no legislative initiative power. The legislative initiative power has only European Commission, and the Commission is independent in this subject. But the political pressure should be stronger. In European Parliament, it is generally accepted that long transport is against our humanity and against the economical interest of the Europe. It would be better for farmers, better for the meat industry to export meat products, not live animals.
Final question. You have to go to the vote in the plenary.
Yes.
Final question is, you have the so-called paragraph 13 of the Lisbon Treaty, stating that animals are sensitive beings. Underneath that line, there are all the exceptions of culture, of religion, and. How can you foresee, hope for a change when you have all these exceptions?
This paragraph should be
renewed.
No, but not renewed. For me, it's clear that always we should treat animals as sentient beings. It means that it's not accepted any practices causing suffering of animals are not accepted. It should be clear, but I don't know why it is not clear for somebody in European Union.
We're trying to do something about it also from here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And vote right.
Yes.
Okay. Peter Stevenson, you've been working with this field for a long time. Can you foresee any changes in the ways people are handling all these kinds of challenges when it comes to the suffering of the animals, when it comes to the long distances, when it comes to the confrontation with other cultures?
It is the transport of animals has been the most difficult of issues on which to make progress. At this point, we very much need members of the European Parliament to make a big fuss, to really be putting political pressure on the Commission and the member states to do a number of things. Firstly, to end the trade to third countries, particularly to the Middle East and North Africa. It should be replaced by a meat trade. Secondly, even if our animals are not going there, they should be helping countries in the Middle East to improve their slaughter standards. I had a meeting recently with the two main ministers in Lebanon and the governor of Beirut. They all said they're horrified when they see what happens. But they said, we don't know where to start. What do we need to do in a very practical way to make things better?
What did you respond?
I explained to them some of the very practical things they could do. For example, in their main abattoir, when cattle arrive, there is no passageway to take them to the slaughter point. So animals end up being beaten and stabbed. I said, you need a passageway that will gently guide the animals from here to the slaughter point. I explained how the sides need to be quite high so the cattle are not distracted by anything. So I was able to give them some very practical information.
Do you know the Temple Grandin methods?
Temple Grandin would be one of the very good examples of somebody who would have that understanding. I had particularly spoken to one or two other experts, all of whom would have similar feelings.
It's a method whereby the cows are not registering anything before they are actually slaughtered.
Certainly, because they don't stun the animals, there will be some severe suffering, but 90% of the problems that were seen in the film today could be solved, even if regrettably there was no stunning at the end. For example, one of the most common problems we're seeing in the Middle East is that slaughtermen are frightened of cattle. They're big animals, so they won't come close to the cattle to do a proper throat cut. They will just, at arm's length, stab.
It was horrifying what we saw.
I have seen animals stabbed more than 10 times sometimes before they finally collapse. If you have a proper restraining box for the animal, and the animal can be restrained, then the slaughterman can come close to it, do a proper cut, so that the animal bleeds quickly, rather than these little... I mean, slaughter is never going to be pretty.
Thank you.
But it could be an awful lot better than what's happening now. The Commission held a 2-day training workshop in Beirut in March, and they seem to think that's all they have to do. You can't solve the problems in 2 days. It is going to be the work of many years.
Alexander Rabitsch, you have written this book. You are a vegetarian yourself.
No?
No, sorry, you are...
Veterinarian.
Veterinarian, sorry. I had hoped the other thing, but that's another story. How long did it take you? Over what kind of period are we talking? Have you collected material for this?
The material was collected within 14 years, but
Okay.
the book was written within 4 months because everything had ready.
Why did you wrote it?
In order to show up what is happening in Europe and what is the frame of possible implementation of the regulation and what cannot be by no ways be implemented out of the poor wording of the regulation, for example, out of divergent versions, language versions.
Yes, but my question is, of course, also based because there are so many informations in this book that you wonder who shall read it. Who do you expect?
Whom I do expect who will read it? Veterinary officers of the districts. That's my main readers. They should be my main readers.
So those who are directly involved in this business, more or less, or should be involved.
Yeah, who should be involved. It should allow a clear picture what they have to put their eye on prior allowing transport to foreign countries or to long distances.
When I listened to you today, my immediate reaction was there is no control.
There's too less control, of course. Too less.
Both from the transport side of the whole thing and at the end of their journey.
Yeah, and during journey. The member states are obliged to do inspections during transport, and there are hardly none.
So what is your recommendation, because that would be a costly affair to have controls?
I'm still working on this topic. I'm engaged now by NGOs, Animals Angels, for example, who ordered me in order to teach veterinary officers.
They are following transports.
They are following, but on the other side, they make educational programs for policemen or for veterinary officers and official veterinarians. Yeah, and
they
health
should
officers.
involve
And
transporters.
It's great what they do, and I speak there and show all these pictures and movies, footage, and how the regulation could be implemented. But after all, once more, this regulation is not sufficient to guarantee good status of the animals during transport, because it's not implemented and because the wording is in several cases so bad that there are different interpretations from not only from country, member state to member state, but even from district to district.